Well, hello and welcome to Expats Everywhere. If you could tell us your name and a little about yourself.
Hi there, I'm Veronica, an American expat in Portugal, right? And I moved from California to Algarve, the Algarve. We'll have to go for that
We're gonna
later.
have to figure out if it's Algarve or the Algarve. I'm gonna keep using the Algarve because I know that many people recognize it by that name. We had a discussion off camera about is it Algarve or the Algarve. It's got an interesting name, but let's dive into it. How long have you been in the Algarve, and why did you choose that region of Portugal?
Okay, so I've been here since 2017, and my husband and I had put our house up for sale, and we're zipping all over Portugal, deciding where we wanted to live. And we went up north to Porto, which is stunning, and Lisbon, fabulous. But we prefer a smaller area, and those areas were a little cooler for us. So, being a Southern California girl, where I grew up with warmth and beaches, we trekked down to the Algarve, I guess we could call it. So we trekked down to the Algarve and eventually settled on renting in the east. And then from the east, we kind of launched off and looked around at everything and found Villarreal de Santo Antonio, which is the furthest kind of southeast point of the Algarve. So we found that it was very similar to California. We had our beaches and our river, good cost of living, just the right size town. And this is where I ended up.
Nice. Well, I know that you have a European connection. So, what was the process like for you to get to Portugal?
Definitely easier. And I feel bad because people ask me questions all the time about the D7 and this and that. And my sister had been working in Europe, and I asked her, "Oh, how can you work there so long? What was the process, visa, blah, blah, blah." And she says, "Oh, we're German citizens. And so, being a German citizen by birth, you can just move here and, eventually go to the camera, show them where you're living, and just get a residency kind of paper versus the whole process that everybody goes through, whether it's a D7 or D4 or golden visa." Yeah, mine was easier. And I didn't know. So you might not know. To all your viewers, you may have citizenship in the EU and not know it.
Hmm.
Being an American, my mom and dad, they were divorced when I was younger, so I didn't think about it much. But he was 100% German. And with the Germans, it's like a bloodline, like a dog. So if you, I'm
That's one
sorry,
way to put it.
but it is, it's a bloodline,
Mm.
and so all I had to do was show that my mom and dad were married and that he was German, and I had his passport, show my birth certificate, got an appointment at the consulate, gave them the papers, came back after they kind of figured out that I was one of their tribe, right? And then just got a passport. And so
Okay.
that is much easier. So I've been seeing a lot of people even on my channel that are finding out, oh my goodness, I have a connection through Ireland or Italy. I think that's easier, and you can just bebop all around Europe without stressing so much about the visa component.
Okay, nice. Well, you guys may or may not know that Veronica is American in Portugal. That's her channel. So if you want to check out her channel for what life is like down there, you can. Let's actually talk about what life is like down in the Algarve. So can you describe the city that you're living in? What's it like?
So Villarreal de Santo Antonio has about 10,000 people. So
Hmm.
mind you, when you look it up, it's a county as well as a city. So when you think of Los Angeles County and Los Angeles City, right? You've got the two different areas. So there are other towns within Villarreal de Santo Antonio. So where I live is the town itself, the county seat, where the town square has the camera, the municipal building, city hall. And it's bordered by the most amazing natural features. So we have the river to Spain to our east. To the south is the ocean, full of preserves. So they're not going to develop along the ocean. These beautiful pine trails. To the north are preserves for flamingos and all kinds of wildlife. So they're not going to build there. And then all we have is this little strip of Highway 125 that leads straight into our corner of the world. And that's the only place that's kind of growing up a little bit and getting larger, but it's just one strip along the highway. So we're this great small town, but big enough to have most of what you need. I mean, for the people who love Lisbon, then, it's going to be way too small a town for them.
Sure.
But
What's the age demographic like there?
so I would say it's pretty mixed.
Okay.
We have a large high school, a couple secondary schools, primary schools. You have a lot of Portuguese, and then of course you do have expats as well. I tend to find that most of the expats around here tend to be Northern European, Dutch, and from the cooler climates that can kind of come when we're talking come and go with like snowbirds.
Mm-hmm.
We call them in California from Oregon or Washington. There's not a lot of American expats, but they're growing. It's amazing what this stuff does. Talking about your town and showing your town, it kind of putting us on the map a little bit. So within the past month, I've met about 20 Americans that are moving to this area.
Wow.
Because of YouTube. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. We actually were in a conversation last week with a young university student that had spent some time in the US, and he's like, I don't meet very many Americans. This was in Porto. And we were like, really? And he said, yeah, I don't meet very many Americans. How do you guys find it here? And as the conversation went on, he's like, are there more of you guys? And we're like, oh yeah, they're behind us. They're coming. Don't worry. So it was.
Do we want it? Do we not want it?
Well, I guess we'll find out. Now,
We want our tribe.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of expats are actually interested in places like Lisbon and also the Algarve. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that's what they hear about, right?
Mm.
And I think this is where YouTube is kind of shifting things. They hear about Lisbon because Madonna went there, right? And they've got more money for large PR, big city. People know New York, Los Angeles, they know the big towns. And if you like that big city vibe, how fun, not during COVID, but, concerts and arts and so much more than if you're in the Algarve, which is like Southern California, which is going to be more beaches. And yes, there's culture down here, but it's going to be nothing like Lisbon. So I think they're just going to Lisbon and Algarve because it's what they've heard.
Right.
And I think we're seeing that change with the ease of being able to get videos out. Well, maybe not that easy.
The editing is not always easy. Yeah. Okay, so we've actually been referencing the Algarve a lot, and it's a really big region. So if you could tell us, what are the key cities for expats to know about in this region?
So I think the big cities that everybody hears about is Albufeira. And that's where a lot of the British come down. They fly down, they party like rock stars, and it's a large city, and then they fly home. And there's some great historical areas and some small towns around there that are pretty fabulous also. But you get a lot of the tourists that come in on a package, and they fly in and out. And then, of course, they hear of Faro, which is another large town, which you're going to fly into. So whether you go in and look at the beautiful historical section right on the ocean, or take the train along the ocean and along like this port, you might see it, you might pass by it, you might go through it, worth a visit. And then and Portimao is also a county and one of the largest towns. Those, to me personally, I don't want a huge town. I loved San Luis Obispo versus Los Angeles. So That's a county in California that's small. Just my preference. But there are big towns here. It's not going to be as large as Lisbon, but those are the big ones. Then there's a lot of fun little ones. So you've got Tavira, that's historical mixed in with, well, mid-sized town, I'd say, much bigger than like my little Villarreal de Santo Antonio. So in the east, we've got Villarreal de Santo Antonio, we've got Tavira, we've got Oliao, which is a fishing village, and it's still a little edgy, but it's up and coming. And then you get in past Tavira to Faro, and Faro's kind of your midpoint, again, where you fly in from the north.
Right.
And then you've got the whole west side, the Lagos and Sagres that are surfy, fun, cool, hip vibe places. And that side's got the stunning cliffs you see all this time, the big orange cliffs of Carveiro, just got to go to Carveru and Benagil Caves, even just for a day trip. But you've got that kind of rocky orange, looks like Grand Canyon meets the ocean, and then
Nice.
that wild, wild west ocean fun surfer vibe. And then you get to our side, way on the east, and this is the sandy beach side. So lots of big, sandy, sprawling beaches, and then, of course, the river to Spain. So that's kind of it, east to west. The northern part, if you want the country, has some nice country. Lule, South Brashtia, Aeroportal, Santa Barbara, Dinesh. There's some cool country places that you can visit, which we have a friend that does videos from there as well. So
Okay. Well, you've rattled off so many of these towns. I'm very curious. Which one do you think is the hidden gem? Which one is like nobody talking about, but they should be talking about
mine, of course.
it? Which
Well, I mean,
you do talk about it on your YouTube channel, so people can check out your town through your eyes.
yeah, I think that's one of the most enjoyable things that I love doing is just popping out my video when I'm walking around town.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of bad pans, guys. The thing about Portugal is you're not allowed to video people. I'm hoping the masks are going to change that, right? Do you run into that? You're doing a great video and someone walks in, you're like, you got to do a quick pan. And you're like, oh, do I want to use that or not? But you're not, they have really good privacy laws here, which is great for people concerned about privacy, right?
Yeah. Let's shift gears a bit. We know that you're into real estate and that you've helped a lot of people identify properties and you've helped people with their dream homes as well. Can you tell us what's the process like buying as a foreigner?
it's I have multiple videos on this, and I did just leave Coldwell Banker. So I was with Coldwell Banker, and I'm going to be traveling for a few months. I put my kind of sign on pause, but I probably won't be going back because I'm really enjoying helping people kind of one-on-one. So I take maybe one client a month and just help them more of a consultant. What we're running into here is a lot of dual agency. And so you can bring somebody to a home to look at a home, and that agent really doesn't want to sell you the home. They want to get both sides of it.
Right.
And this is where we run into so many things. You'll run into crazy pictures, like you'll see when you're looking online at Idealish or Casa Sapa or any of the kind of Zillow type apps we have, you'll see people have clothes everywhere. Like someone just posted on one of the expat sites, there's this mattress with blood or wine all over it. And that's like one of the pictures. To just go wine or something get shot on this. Like, why would you do this as a real estate agent, as a professional?
Sure.
Well, because their listings are non-exclusive. So they can literally, I've seen up to 30, 35 agents listing one house.
Mm-hmm.
So they really don't care. They're not going to take their time to, and I don't want to say they don't care, but when there's that many to spend your time and money when one of 30 people is listing it, that what they're really looking for on that side is dual agency, the buyer and the seller, which is illegal in most states in America. And if it's not illegal, there's some serious protocol that you have to go through and disclosure. So because of this dual agency, you need to make sure that you're represented. And I would say, use a real estate lawyer if your agent has you as both the buyer and the seller. So I think that's really important. You're going to see crazy pictures because, again, why are they going to spend, time and money shooting your house if 20 other people are going to shoot it? They're really just hoping they get the buyer and they happen to be one of the listing agents. In addition, because of that, they may not show other listings
Right.
that they're not on. So it makes it really kind of the Wild West. We have an internal system, and even that was the Wild West. It's not like a real MLS. It pulls from what the agent puts in, and then it also pulls from the Zillow type groups. And so you end up with all this data that's just wrong. Some will say 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, different prices. It'll be listed at different prices.
Mm-hmm.
And
We've run into that.
So tell me, when you ran into it, what stay in place, right? Different pricing?
Oh, absolutely. And you have to get all the agents together to figure out what the actual price is, and they've got to call the owner, and it becomes a thing. But I mean, for us, it's like whatever the lowest price is, that's where we're going to start negotiations from.
Well, if there's a lowest price, why would you need to negotiate at all? Let's just look at that. If one agent has listed it at 500 and another one has 700, why do you need to start negotiating? Like it's 500. Like you have it written at 500.
Hmm.
That's what it is. Like,
Yeah.
and that's why I've kind of moved more into a consultant role, because I've had people from America call and say, we really want this house. We can't get it. The agent won't respond to us. I
Yep.
call them and I'm like, hey, you know what? These people are paying me directly. So one, they're serious. And two, you're not going to have to share the commission. And they're right on it. And so I've been able to get people in fast. And I'm
Right.
meeting with the owners of the different real estate agencies. So one of the owners I met in town, he's got like 8 agencies through the Algarve, and he doesn't have a huge brand, but it's his own brand. So he's getting all the money. And, you know, the other day someone sent me 3 listings. They're like, hey, can you help us get appointments? These people won't call us back. So now I call the owner of the agency and say, hey, here's 3, and he'll take me out personally. I'm not trying to call 3 different agents within even his group. I go with him. He takes me out. So these people were stressed. I called, his name's Arthur. I called Arthur. I said, hey, I've got some Americans. Same thing. They're paying me. You don't have to pay anyone else. He called his secretary, got the keys, got the appointments. We went out, saw all 3. And guess what? They're going to get first crack at them because the agent doesn't have to share their commission. It is what it is.
So we just had something like that happen on the rental side where someone contacted us. They emailed us and they said, we've been trying to understand more about this property that we're looking at renting, and the listing says that the owner does not want to speak to real estate agents.
Yeah.
So it's not even the owner, really. This person seems like the property manager. They've got a portfolio of properties. So they're only wanting to talk to people that are direct, right? So they don't have to split commission. So we rung them up for this person that emailed us and got the answer about the property. Okay, let me.
Well, I think it's something that needs to be done, whether you do it as a service project or you do it for, you know, paid work. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. The amount of stress that it relieves off of that person because they need the contract to get over here, right?
No, exactly. Well, let me ask you this. You mentioned the need to have some sort of real estate attorney helping represent you. If you could real quickly tell us what those types of fees are like. What should someone expect to pay? Because whenever I hear of lawyer or attorney, I'm like, oh goodness, that's going to be expensive.
You know, I think this is where we have to wrap our heads around that. What is your time and frustration worth as well?
Mm-hmm.
The guy that I use is a fabulous price. His name's Tiago, and I have a little resource sheet. I do not get any referral fees. You know, he's completely professional. I just love him, and he saved me because when I bought my house, it was dual agency,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that it was through ERA, and they had the seller and they had me.
Mm-hmm.
And Tiago was referred by a broker in close to Albufeira. There's a little area called the Golden Triangle. Oops,
Yep.
I forgot to mention it. The Golden Triangle. That's if I find Americans don't love to go there because it's just a bunch of golf courses with overpriced mansions. Oh, wait, I say that out loud. With very beautiful mansions, but they're very modern, and you don't feel like you're in Europe at all. There's
Right.
no like authenticity to it. It's you know. I've lived in Newport Beach. It's like living in Newport Beach. Like you don't need to fly all the way to Europe to live in Newport Beach. If you just, did you want your garage on the left or the right? Did you want the square model or the rectangle? You know, I tend to find, and I could be wrong because there's exceptions, most of the Americans coming over want authentic and they want to look at the history and the vibe and the, you know, but you know,
For
there was
sure.
one that just called that didn't want modern. So Tiago is phenomenal. And what he did was, he wrote the contract. The contract is called the CPCV. So when you go into what we would normally say escrow or create an offer, it's very interesting. It's done verbally between the agents. They kind of say, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Or email, you know, it should be documented, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of agreeing on a price without an official offer. Once they kind of narrow it down, then the CPCV is created, and that's your promissory contract. With that, you're putting 20% down usually, and it's very difficult to get it back. So you want an attorney who's going to be on your side, and you want somebody who's also going to look at the property. What we call in America a home inspector.
Mhm.
Here they call a surveyor, because he'll do the survey, he'll double check the paperwork, and he'll also do thermal imaging, which is pretty cool considering a lot of the homes, the way they're built, could be cooler or too hot. So the thermal imaging is important, which then can verify the energy efficiency certificate. Okay, so the attorney can look at all of those documents in addition to the fact that he'll also make sure that everything's signed properly. So my attorney even wrote the contract, even though that's not standard. It's usually whoever is selling the property, representing the seller, right, the listing agent, that is the person who generally their agency writes the contract. Now, in my case, they had both sides. So, of course, they would write it. No, I had Tiago write it. And what he charged me was about 1,200 euros on a 160,000 euro purchase price.
Okay.
To me, it was well worth it because I completely controlled it. At home, we're used to paying escrow and title and all of these. You don't have that here. There's no title. So if something is on there, something's owed on the property, guess what? You're liable for that. At home, title insurance is just that. It's to cover any clouds on title, right? So here you really need someone looking out for you. And, you know, when we got to the closing table, it was hilarious. There was a fight that broke out. So apparently, and I don't know, but since Tiago wrote the contract, they never came back and adjusted the contract. So of course, it's mostly in my favor, right? And and so at closing, I'm brand new. I don't speak Portuguese, and you close at the notary office. So it's not like at home where you close and it's recorded the next day. When you close, it's typed in right there. They read you the agreement in English, in Portuguese. You sign, done. You own it. You walk away with little registration papers that you own the property. So we were sitting at the closing table, and all of a sudden, somebody says something, and my attorney's sitting next to me, and they have one agent sitting next to me to look like they really represent me, but they don't. Then they have another agent looking like they represent the seller, which everybody represents the seller, right? Because that's who's paying them.
Sure.
And they all start screaming at each other in Portuguese, and I'm like, wow. And my attorney is a bulldog. He's, next thing I know, the owners are writing me a check. I'm like, oh, what just happened? And he said, well, of course, we put in prorated taxes, prorated insurance, prorated homeowners dues. He's like, you're not going to pay for the time you're not there. And I'm like, yeah, that's standard in California.
Sure.
And he's like, yeah, well, they were saying they didn't want to pay it, and it's in the contract. So and to Tiago's point, he's done a lot without charging. I don't want to encourage you to not, charge, that. But, when I did get my residency paper, he drove from Faro here, which is about 45 minutes, walked me into the camera, even paid the fee, the 15 euros fee to get my certificate, translated everything for me.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we were in and out, and I was resident like that.
Brilliant.
He was the one that said, hey, Veronica, you've been here about 6 months, and we do have the taxes that you're a resident and you live here, so you should register as a resident. And so went down the camera. Again, he calls and tells me stuff. I got, and a lot of things he doesn't charge for. And I'm like, dude, you need to send me a bill. The good attorneys really don't charge you up front.
Okay. Well,
there was some scams online, right?
Well, still speaking about kind of some of the financial implications of living down in the Algarve, outside of housing costs, is the cost of living inflated compared to other parts of Portugal? Like, do you find it inflated? Because it is known to be kind of more the posh area of Portugal.
Not at all, because, okay, my place I bought for 150. It's gone up now, of course. Prices went crazy the past few years. 150,000 for a river view. Like, the one above me actually was the penthouse one. Tiago said, don't get that one. I was sad, but he was right. There were some permit issues. Anyway, so I'm the second one under, with views of the river to the ocean. Wow. And I look straight at Spain. I look at the bridge between Spain and Portugal. And every day I walk out, I'm just like, wow, how did I get this for this price? In California, That's property tax for like 5 years. So
That's funny. Yeah, that's true.
in
So,
LA, it's $1,000 a month for property tax. It's ridiculous. So as far as the cost goes, no, it's not inflated in my town.
sure.
If you go to the tourist towns, it's like anywhere in the world. You go to the tourist towns, it's going to be expensive. I gauge the price of things based on the price of a beer,
Okay.
which when you're talking about the beer,
Sure.
essential beer, when you go into a bar and it's €2 for a beer or €1 for whether it's an imperial or a Kaneka. Here, Kaneka's large, right? It's a large beer. Whether it's an imperial or a Kaneka, you see the difference because you've got your regional beers. Here, it's Superbock and Sagres. So if you're not going with a craft beer and you're paying $5, you're getting robbed.
Whoa.
The other day, yeah.
I would not pay
€5
€5 for whether it be a Principe, a Fino, a Caneca, Imperial, anything for Sagres or Superbock. Nothing against Superbock, but that's expensive.
Yeah, and you'll see it. But
Dang.
that's the tourist places. And I don't like the tourist places. I'll go and visit for the day just to check it out. I just went over to Villa Mora, but Villa Mora was built like in the 70s. There's nothing historic about it. They just put a whole bunch of, and I'm sorry, Villa Mora people, but it's got a beautiful marina. To me, it just looks like Newport Beach. I didn't come all the way to Europe to live in Newport Beach. I could have stayed home. And so a lot of very expensive places around the marina, and everybody's saying, come in, eat here. And just exorbitant prices,
Right.
So you have to really dig for that mom and pop shop versus when you're a place like Villarreal de Santo Antonio, they're all mom and pop places. So
Right.
I feel.
Cool. Well, the Algarve is notorious for being a retirement destination because of the ideal weather, the golf courses, but is it good for younger crowds?
Okay, so I think it depends on which city. Claire, who I met through the military connection, her husband was a retired fighter pilot, and he's also a surfer. So they ended up in Lagos, and they've got 3 children. They are, in the surf town, and they love it with young, fun people. And I think even Marta, my friend that lives in Lisbon, when you're the right demographic, you're going to find the right people. I think there are definitely some very seasonal places in the Algarve that are going to be retirement or party and nothing between. So I think you really need to do your research if you're younger and if they have international schools, well, you're probably in a good place. If there's a lot of schools and international schools, and there's sites to look up those in Portugal. There's a site for all the international schools.
Yeah.
And
we'll put the link for that in the description section below for you guys.
I think that'll be a good one. Yeah. For me, I think my town is pretty moderate. I mean, it's a living, breathing town. We only have 2 hotels. We're getting a 3rd in the square. It's not like the next town over, Monte Gordo, that is just tons of hotels. And that's where I wintered when I first moved here. And it was, no joke, shuddered. Like, it was creepy. It was okay because I needed to just be sad at the time. But to live year round, unless you really just love the beach and you like solitude, it was just a few snowbirds and then in the summer chaos.
Okay. So to set some realistic expectations, what are some things that people should know up front before they move to the Algarve?
You've got to visit. I mean, I think I get a lot of people saying, where should I live? And they've never been here at all. There's a vibe to it, and I think your vibe. Like, my vibe's different than your vibe, right? You've got kids. I want to be on my bike in the preserves. And
Kid. I've got kid. Just one.
You've got one.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more.
Not yet.
The photos and the videos are just adorable.
Thank you.
She's
a handful.
Yeah, like, I would never say go to Albufeira to you. Like, that would just be horrible for you. All the British stag and hen parties, which are bachelor and bachelorette parties, and they are like wow, they dress the part, like men in hula skirts with nothing underneath, and they're haven't seen the sun in a while, and they like to drink. So,
That's funny.
and I have seen people with their kids, pushing them around as these
Just
people
covering their
are
eyes.
oh, and it's drunk. You kind of see the kids going, oh, especially American tourists that don't know better.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, that's crazy.
And they don't drink and stop. They drink, they throw up, and they drink more. So it's a unique culture.
So, not to put people in a box, but what type of person should not move to the Algarve? Because it seems like there's a type of lifestyle. Maybe, I mean, maybe there's a spot that fits everybody, but is there a type of person that should not go there?
No, I don't think so. Because the Algarve is so diverse. Again, it's like Southern California. You've got inland areas with wineries. You've got the country. You've got surfer beaches. You've got party towns. You've got, I mean, really look at Southern California. You've got even, let's say, San Diego. You've got downtown party zones, and you've got the exclusive country club zones and golf club course zones. You've got, hidden beaches, small little, like Oceanside, well, I don't know what it's like now, but little, kind of fun hippie communities. There's really everything here. So I wouldn't say there's something I would say don't move here. Like, I just think find your vibe.
Okay. Well, on American in Portugal, your channel, what can people expect to find? What resources, what topics do you like to cover?
Well, because I don't call myself a professional. And earlier I forgot the question and where I was going. I just give real like coffee chat advice and real just clips around town, corny, goofy, just me being me. I mean, we had a bike race come through town. I just posted a video last night, and the Volta Algarve, which is one of the large races, came through. And, some of my friends, because we've made expat friends here, are screaming and yelling. The locals are looking at them. They're like, woo, go!
That's awesome.
Drinking. So we're the British partiers here in my little town.
The German, American, British partiers all wrapped into one.
So my channel is really to kind of help people see what real life is like here.
Cool.
My husband and I had started off with a traveling website, started back in 2007 when we spent 5 years learning to make wine in Italy, and how you could, escape with like one of these work exchange programs. So, you get room and board for helping them make wine, helping tours. And we started blogging back when blogging was new. So we knew this was going to be our retirement goal, but it's now morphed from that into, the lifestyle here in Portugal and living in Portugal.
Awesome.
And YouTube.
Well, Veronica, at Expats Everywhere, we believe that living abroad transforms lives. So we got to know, how has living abroad transformed your life?
I think I've always had that wanderlust and always had that dream. And I should say we, even though I'm now alone. My husband and I, this was the dream to, kind of get out of that rat race and start living life. And you can do that here. Your cost of living day to day may not be the same. When you're looking at items, €1 versus $1, right? But the actual cost of an apartment and health insurance and a lot of the other items makes it possible to retire early. And so changing from living for the man to living for yourself and living in Europe changes everything. The ability to just hop in your car and be in Spain, well, I was looking at where Christopher Columbus took off from, and Knights Templar stuff going all over Portugal, just hopping in the car and saying, hey, let's check out Sintra or Tomar or, some of the historical destinations here. America's a baby,
It is. Absolutely. Like just over 250 years old, right? So yeah, here. We agree. Well, if you guys want to check out me answering these questions on Veronica's channel, click the link here. And if you haven't done it already, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you guys over on that video. Now let's get moving.